We have now come to the last session of day one of MTM 2021. And we're going to end it with a casual but dynamic dialogue on digital economy and intergovernmental talk. Now, for this session, allow me to welcome Mr. Raymond Siva, Senior Vice President, Investment and Brand Chief Marketing Officer of MDEC, for a chit-chat session with the following ambassadors on a country's economy and the interrelationship between the countries. Over to you, Raymond.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here to close the day. Digital transformation has led to unprecedented reductions in the cost of engaging in international trade, changing both how and what we trade, and also growing and contributing to growing competitiveness, right? But however, as a result also of this digital transformation, trade has become a little more complex, and how in which measures affect trade has also changed, right? And old issues, perhaps such as trade facilitation, have now a new meaning in this digital era, where small parcels travel more frequently across international borders, and new issues such as cross-border data flows can raise new challenges, right? And so in today's rapidly evolving digital environment, governments are facing growing regulatory challenges in ensuring that the opportunities and the benefits from digital trade for both individuals and business can be realized and shared more inclusively. Good afternoon. My name is Raymond Siva, and I'm from MDEC. Welcome to the second Malaysia Tech Month 2021. And I'm really happy to have with me here today a panel of very deep experience, deep international experience, to share with us some of the thoughts around digital trade, some of the challenges and benefits that the digital trade has brought to governments in ASEAN, right? And so it's my pleasure, firstly, to introduce His Excellency Oka Hiroshi, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to Malaysia. Welcome, Ambassador. I also welcome His Excellency Cristiano Maggipinto, the Embassy of Italy to Malaysia. Welcome, Ambassador. I also like to welcome His Excellency Paul Jaroslav Sanda, the Minister Councillor for Commercial and Senior Trade and Investment Commissioner, Malaysia and Brunei. Welcome. And also His Excellency Charles Hay, High Commissioner, British High Commission to Malaysia. All of you gentlemen have got very deep and wide experience from throughout the world. I will not read out your bios, but Ambassador Hiroshi has been in Malaysia from 2019 as with Ambassador Charles Hay. Ambassador Cristiano has been here for a number of years, and his experience in the EU, I think brings a lot of experience to Malaysia. And Mr. Paul, with your work around Austrade and your work around ASEAN, I think is going to be very beneficial to this conversation. Welcome, and selamat petang. Yeah. If I may just go straight away and jump in straight to the questions, looking at, it's in the evening. Ambassador Hiroshi, if I may, to start with you. Yeah. Japan has been a very important strategic trading partner from the time of Tun Mahathir till now. Japan has provided a lot of technical expertise as well as in Malaysia. But it's apparent now that domestic concerns perhaps are forcing any countries to focus on the immediate priorities, which is within Japan, right? So against this backdrop, will it be more likely for Japanese investors who have traditionally gone outside to invest, will they adopt a more wait-and-see attitude before investing?
Well, thank you, Raymond, for having me. Firstly, congratulations on the 25th anniversary of the establishment of MDEC. Always nice to talk to you. And also congratulations on the second Malaysia Tech Month 2021. I really hate to disappoint you, Raymond, by confessing that I've never used Zoom ever since COVID-19 took place. So I'm a real novice. So I try to grapple the question you posed for me. But when it comes to the effects of the COVID-19 for the Japanese investment, still it's mixed figures, partly because the COVID-19 is still ongoing, but also because there are positive effects and negative effects. So it's very much difficult to make a conclusive, the presentations have the effects on the Japanese investment. Well, Japan is the third largest source of the foreign direct investment to Malaysia, and there are now 1,500 companies operating and producing 340,000 job opportunities for Malaysians. So Japanese, the investments contributing to the wealth, the creation, as well as the employment creations. The December last year, so already in the middle of the COVID-19 the crisis, the JETRO conducted a survey to the local Japanese companies in Malaysia. The result was unexpectedly rather positive one, saying that the 36% of the respondents said they're considering the future expansion of their investment in Malaysia, as opposed to only 9% thinking of outside the operations. The last year, Japan was the fourth on the flow basis, the largest supplier for foreign direct investments. So there are structurally, in principle, positive assessment, interest on the part of Japanese business to make an investment to Malaysia. And also one of the lessons we learned since the COVID-19 started was that the very much stretched supply chains, too much emphasis on efficiency, has been rather vulnerable to disruptions. So we are now trying to strengthen the resilience of the supply chains. How to do that? Now, in order to reduce the risk of the supply chains, why not to bring the area of production close to where the demand or consumption is taking place? Now, looking at the Southeast Asia is expected to grow very much rapidly. So it makes very sense to move the production basis to closest to Southeast Asia or within Southeast Asia. And actually, including last year, the Japanese investment to ASEAN was larger than the Japanese investment to China. So, so this is kind of something going to continue to take place. So ASEAN is in a good positions to grasp capture the foreign direct investment, not only coming from Japan, surely, they're coming from all of the country, they're trying to grasp the opportunities. But at the same time, we are now on daily basis seeing a very much dire the figures, how to assess the situations wherein the daily cases are now hovering above the 15,000. And of course, we praise very much the accelerated pace of the immunizations, much faster, or the fastest among the ASEAN countries and the faster than in Japan and the UK or US, according to the recent study reporting. But a bit worrying about the situation in Selangor, where there are 600 Japanese companies concentrated in making the E&E activities. There, the daily cases again beyond 5,000, and the ICU bed occupancy rate is beyond 100. So, and also much touted of course we welcome what we PICAS, the large scale, the factory basis, the immunization programs. Of course, Japanese companies are happy to sign up for, but as far as we know, that none has been implemented. So we are very much rather difficult situations to confess. Some companies have started to send their officers and families back home for their safety. The production side, they strictly followed SOP. So E&E are allowed to operate 6%, and they're contributing the rapid growth. But at the same time, for instance, car industries or steel industry are still only allowed to operate up to 10%, not allowed to produce actual productions, simply making their machines warm. So if the situation continues, they are not able to perform their responsibility as supply chains. So I'm sure that this might dent the reputations as a supply chain, the inhabitable supply chains. So I hope that the situation will soon improve, so that the industries will be able to resume their operations fully and to perform their responsibility as a very much important habit supply chain. Of course, we understand that making a balance between the safety and industry, there is no textbook solutions. But we hope that with all the will and support is behind you, so the situation will improve soon, so that the Malaysian can capture the full potential which is being presented to in front of the Malaysia.
Thank you, Ambassador. If I may go to Ambassador Cristiano, just to pick up from there. So there are obviously some challenges, not just in Malaysia, but throughout the region, as we see the cases kind of fluctuating. I have to say, though, that the rate of vaccination in Malaysia has been stellar over the last 1 month. And there's been a lot of efforts by the government to really, push through the PCAS as well. I take your point, Ambassador Hiroshi, that it can be done better, and I think the government is pushing that. We've been in many discussions to make that happen. But Ambassador Cristiano, on your part, you did mention previously in one interview that greater collaboration between Malaysia and Italy will really open up Malaysia's private sector to enjoy the benefits of Italy's advanced technologies and the expertise that has been built in Italy. In this environment, how do you think that we can work together? We can, leverage or welcome these technologies in here. And which area do you think Malaysia has a competitive advantage, President? You're on mute, I think, Ambassador.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Very good.
I have unmuted, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raymond. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you to MDEC for this webinar. What I would like to say is that, yes, you mentioned that Malaysian technological edge. As a matter of fact, there are certain sectors in which we think that Malaysia can be very important. And one of these is, for example, cybersecurity, in which Malaysia has a very high ranking at the world level and especially at the ASEAN level. We have already started in this field our cooperation with Malaysia. Last April, on the 13th of April, we had a seminar about cybersecurity, followed by B2B meetings between Italian companies and Malaysian companies. And Italy has also participated at the CIDES 2021 exhibition at the end of the month of June, attending a panel on the matter of maritime security. There are, of course, other fields that we can take into consideration as possible and potential sectors of cooperation between Italy and Malaysia, which are cloud computing, Internet of Things, big data analytics. These are all sectors in which, for example, Italy has an extraordinary know-how, and Italy is on its way to apply Internet of Things, artificial intelligence in many different sectors, which can be beneficial also to Malaysia. Just to make some example, I would say finance, energy and utility, manufacture, media, insurance, and so on. And there are some Italian companies like Enel, which is the most important Italian energy company, and other, which have a technological edge, and that can be very useful also from the Malaysian point of view. So I think that considering that in certain sectors, Italy has a technological edge, and in certain other, Malaysia has a technological edge, there is really a very wide potential of cooperation between our two countries in this field.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Just building on that, Minister Councillor Paul, we talk about technology exchange, we talk about support, and all four of you, your countries have got a good presence in Malaysia and also in ASEAN. And to that, so the bilateral ties between Malaysia and Australia were elevated recently to a comprehensive strategic partnership, at a virtual meeting between both prime ministers in January. So really, this shows a deepening of the relationship between Australia as well as Malaysia. So from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership, in your mind, also being in Australia, like how will this benefit both our countries?
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. And it's great to be here with my esteemed diplomatic colleagues. Thank you for the question. Can I firstly forward apologies from our High Commissioner, Dr. Justin Lee, who's been unfortunately unavoidably detained. But it's my great privilege to represent the High Commission here at the panel today. So thanks for your question and congratulations to MDEC on really the start of the Malaysia Tech Month. It's fantastic to see it going ahead. I think a couple of points. One is that, yes, Australia is committed to maintaining a very, very strong, comprehensive strategic partnership with Malaysia. But those are not just words, or they're not just some, I suppose, initiatives on a piece of paper that's put into a drawer. We believe that really the challenges that we're facing and also the general environment in terms of not just the pandemic, but the rapid transformation and the changes that we all are feeling at the moment related to digital transformation, the pace of change. It's really about what we can do as government agencies and also as corporations to assist business to face those challenges. And one of the things within the comprehensive strategic partnership, along with policy frameworks and commitment to collaboration and cooperation on the digital economy, which means looking at where we can align on regulatory frameworks, where we can look at better ways of cross-border e-commerce, for example, better ways of e-invoicing, a more robust regulatory approach to those tricky issues of taxation in terms of digital business and digital trade, but really where we can see opportunities to give practical assistance to assist business. And I'm very pleased to note that as part of the comprehensive strategic partnership that we have, there's a facility for more deeper collaboration with MDEC and with other government agencies under the Memorandum of Understanding that we have, which guides specific business assistance. And one of those is, of course, as we know, the Australia-Malaysia Tech project, Tech Exchange, which has a number of events and activities aimed at helping business. We've mentioned already some of those events that we participated in CITES, in cybersecurity, for example, and collaboration around skills and capacity building, really looking at areas where we as government agencies and as representatives of our respective countries in Malaysia, that we can find practical ways to work together to assist business to make them more future-proof. So in terms of exchanges around cybersecurity, looking at areas where we can actually give them an opportunity for more increased business matching. And we'll be doing that at the end of the month with our Australia promotion through the Malaysian Tech Exchange on the 26th of August. So I might leave it there in view of the time, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And to Ambassador Charles, following on from that as well, so, the relationship between UK and Malaysia goes back, a long way. We just recently marked the 100th UK company investing in MSC Malaysia. Clarivate was here. We also had a engagement with the Minister of Communications and Multimedia recently, where we highlighted, or you really highlighted, some of the companies that are successfully doing business here. But against this global pandemic, against this backdrop of rising cases and the lack of travel opportunities, to get investments into a country, to understand the digital ecosystem here, we can tell the stories, but it's also important to get the investors here to see us. How do you think this has maybe impacted trade between the UK and Malaysia, Ambassador, or has it not?
Well, thank you very much, Raymond, for this opportunity. And let me say, firstly, that I'm very glad the UK has been able to announce a measure of support to Malaysia. We've just donated 415,000 doses of vaccine. We're trying to help our friends in need. So the relationship, trade and investment relationship, as you say, is very, very strong. And what's been really interesting about this pandemic, which has been so difficult in many ways economically, is it's not really had a major impact on, certainly on UK exports to Malaysia. If you strip out tourism, which of course is not happening at the moment, then in fact the trade has gone up. And what's very interesting is that one of the areas that we see as being potentially interesting to grow further is the tech sector. Now, the UK, as you know very well, Raymond, I think is one of the world leaders in tech. And in fact, in 2019, I think it's the last year for which we've got figures, the UK was the third largest recipient of tech investment after the US and China. And I know you've been talking to a couple of Malaysian unicorns earlier on. Well, the UK's got 100 unicorns in the tech sector. So I think we're very well placed to look for opportunities to grow that tech business overseas. And Malaysia is definitely one of the countries of interest. You've mentioned the 100 companies that now have MSC status. Clarivate is a very good example of what we're doing here. So they do big data analysis, and they've established a research excellence center in Bayan Lepas in Penang, which will create 150 jobs. And they're not just looking at the Malaysia market, they're looking at the whole regional market operating out of Penang. And that's a pattern that we see replicated across the tech sector. So Cristiano mentioned cybersecurity. We've got another great example of a British company here, BAE Systems. They've got a big operation employing 300 people, and they operate across the whole region from there. And what companies are looking for, I think, in Malaysia, they're looking for the usual things for investors. They're looking for security, they're looking for stability, they're looking for clear legal systems. Obviously, operating in the English language makes Malaysia a very easy country to be in. It's got very good quality of living, which is obviously very attractive. But on the tech side, what you've got is you have great human resources. And I've spoken to many of these tech companies, and they tell me that what you have here is a pool of people who are perfect for work in the tech center, which again is a reason why a lot of British companies are drawn here. So I'm very confident that we're going to see many more examples of that kind of investment here in Malaysia in the future.
That's very positive, Ambassador, and I look forward to working with more of the UK companies here. But back to you, Ambassador Hiroshi. The Look East policy will mark its 40th year anniversary next year, and perhaps as we look into the MSC, and we're celebrating our 25 years, and we're looking at the revisions of the Bill of Guarantees and the like. In your view, do you think this Look East policy could have a reinvention, could have a boost to take into account the new norm that we're living in, and the new kind of companies and investments that we're looking at?
Yes, looking back the 40 years of the achievement that Look East policy has done for the relations between Japan and Malaysia, I'm sure this Look East policy is going to be guiding light to develop the two countries. The two pillars under the Look East policies in the past, one is the human resources development, and the second pillar is the industrial infrastructure developments. Well, perhaps with the change of the structure of the Malaysian economy, the future emphasis will continue to be placed on the human resources development. But instead of the heavy, hard infrastructure developments, perhaps we will be talking about perhaps digital or soft infrastructure. We see things is something that we are going to discuss between the two countries. Yes, Malaysia stands out among the ASEAN countries in terms of human resources development. English is very much the well-spoken and the politically stable. At the same time, according to JITRO survey, again, one of the challenges they face of the workforce level is the shortage of the talent. As the economy moves away from the traditional engineering to databases or digital basis, an economy, then so the local talent, which is capable of, they understand and make use of the digital technology into the actual production process is a kind of the focus we're going to place in terms of the human resources development. So we are now working on the establishment of the branch campus of Siva University, which is one of the leading state university in Japan, has produced 3 Nobel Prize winners. The establishment is expected to 2023, is expected to contribute to the kind of the human resources development to cater to the new needs of the digital age.
I think you brought up a very key point here, Ambassador. I think we talked about the digital infrastructure and the talent. The digital talent infrastructure is also very, very critical. I think, having talked to many investors over the last year, a lot of feedback has been really the sheer number of digital talents that's required, not only the number, but the quality of talents that's required for this new thinking and the speed of which businesses are evolving, especially in the fourth IR technologies, right? And so on that note, Ambassador Cristiano, you talked about the support we have around cybersecurity, around cloud, around IoT, and also finance, and fintech. Ambassador, I want to also understand what perhaps are some of the areas that Italy can draw on their capacity and capability building, and then share that with Malaysia, right? Because just according to a LinkedIn report just released, over the last 6 months, demand for digital jobs has increased 5-fold in Malaysia in 6 months, 5-fold, right? So that tells us that we really need to up our game and work with partners such as yourselves, all of you here, to see how we can do that, right? Ambassador, your views, please. You're mute, Ambassador. Ambassador, I think you're on mute, Ambassador.
Yes. Yes, I was saying that Italian and Malaysian economy have an important point in common, and this point in common is the presence of a large number of small and medium-sized companies. In Italy, practically 80% of the Italian manufacturing system is made by small and medium-sized company. In Malaysia, is even more, or around 90% of it. And of course, for medium and small-sized companies, it is probably more difficult to adapt to new technologies for many different reasons, because they don't have enough funds, because they do not have a technological expertise, and so on. But what has been showed, but what is going on in Italy, the Italian experience shows that SMEs, on the contrary, can incorporate very well digital processes, and this can be, of course, of example to Malaysia and of ASEAN countries, and in this way they can improve also their export record, because normally, at least at the ASEAN level, SMEs contribute only to 20% of export, and so far only 16% use digital tools. We have an example of an Italian company, which is a medium-sized company with more or less 250 employees, and it is a highly specialized companies. They produce lock doors for dish washers and washing machines. So you see something really very, very specific. And they have been able to improve their performance thanks to digital technology so much that they have been included, the only SMEs, in a list of 16 factories of future network. At the same time, we have, according to the Financial Times in this case, in Italy, there are in a list of the European digital champions that the Financial Times has prepared a couple of years ago, there are 11 Italian SMEs which have been able to integrate digital processes in their production facilities with great success. So this is something that can be done, and of course it needs to SMEs need support from this point of view, but it's something that can be done and can improve greatly the productivity and the quality of the production of SMEs and their capability to export and to go into the international markets.
Thank you, Ambassador. So that's interesting because you're absolutely right by saying the SMEs are the engine of growth in Malaysia. They make up, about 90%, but also very correct by saying that digitalization, there seems to be a fear, perhaps, or the lack of thinking about how to use digitalization. I don't think it's a matter of whether they understand whether digitalization is needed. They understand that.
Yes.
It's about taking that next step.
Exactly. And getting probably also the necessary support, because you can understand that for SMEs, it's probably a much more significant investment to go digital than for bigger companies. So probably they need, from this point of view, incentives, more support. In Italy, for example, we are using a great part of the funds that we will get from the European Union in the framework of the recovery funds that the European Union has decided to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, exactly for the digitalization of Italian companies, because we think that that is the future. That is what we need. To do. So it's probably incentive of the same kind can be adopted also by Malaysia and by the other ASEAN countries.
I think that's something we should explore further with. On that note, so Ambassador Hiroshi talked about human resource perhaps as a pillar. Ambassador Cristiano, you talk about the SMEs. I just want to jump to you, Minister Councillor Paul, to talk about the human resources to traditional businesses, going digital. But what is your view on the other end of the spectrum, the businesses who are doing the high-tech stuff, right? So you have Doug from Australia, for example, who's doing edge computing, right? What is your view around the new investments, and how is Australia thinking about these new investments, such as medical equipment, the higher value added, industries like medical equipment, manufacturing, and perhaps even agriculture, where you guys have a competitive edge? Are companies in Australia looking to invest and export that energy and work with, countries like Malaysia? You're on mute, Ms. Paul.
Thank you, Raymond. Yes, they certainly are. And can I pick up on High Commissioner Hayes' comments around the trade flows? So from Malaysia and Australia's position, we have seen still strong trade flows, despite the disruptions around some of the supply chains. We have real and continuing interest from Malaysian companies looking at specific investments in Australia, and the flow of businesses and inquiries coming to us through the High Commission, looking at Malaysia as a potential market, not just for products and consumer products, but also for complex services, as well as the potential for Australian companies to invest in Malaysia's manufacturing and processing industries for export into third markets. So to your question, I think Australia does have a very strong competitive edge in a number of key areas. You've mentioned health and medical. Definitely there is increasing interest, for example, from Malaysia in investing in clinical trials and the development of pharmaceuticals, investment in medical device industries. So looking for those collaborative partnerships that can give both companies a competitive edge internationally. And then, yes, very much so in agriculture and agribusiness. There is a very, very strong focus in Australia at the moment on looking at developing technologies that can support and can assist not just, I suppose, the development of the production capability, but how we also look at provenance, how we also look at how we process, how we look at the production of agricultural products in Australia. So ag tech, of course, ag tech and med tech. And the government, both at a federal level and at a state government level, is really focused on support to companies and the innovation and the acceleration of those technologies. So you have Internet of Things, you have support to supply chains, particularly in F&B, in terms of blockchain, which is really important. And there are a number of good examples of companies already looking seriously at Malaysia in terms of testing some of those products and capabilities, and then looking at launching from Malaysia into ASEAN more broadly.
I love that. So we have a positioning called Land and Expand, making Malaysia the heart of digital ASEAN. So I more than happy to see what else we can do to land more Australian companies in here, other than just the wines and cheese, which you're doing very well anyway with. Your Excellency, Charles.
Thank you, Raymond.
Yeah.
If I could add that the opportunities are extremely strong, and Malaysia's stated position of working on a centre of excellence with respect to the halal industry and processing for third markets is of extreme interest to Australian firms, and we look and hope to do more in that space shortly.
Just on that note, Mr. Charles, Malaysia being the center, the digital hub for ASEAN is really something that we want to build on. I think, like you rightly pointed out earlier on, we have the people, we have the talent, the diversity is here, good infrastructure, we're centrally located. And on that note, I think we can take a leaf from where UK is at as the tech hub, as you rightly pointed out, with inflows coming into UK. You also have deep strength in fintech. Launched the halal financing, as well as the universities. The partnership between UK and Malaysia, the university ties have been very, very strong. What else can we do to move up the value chain here? I think leveraging on the partnerships that we have and also the universities that are here. Mesno?
So I think already many of the points being made about human resources, I think this is the most important thing. You need to maintain and grow and expand your capable workforce, and education, of course, is at the heart of that. And I think what's been happening in education, the education sector during the pandemic has been very, very interesting. So you rightly say the UK has got very strong educational links. There are something like 19,000 Malaysians studying in the UK at the moment, and around about 40,000 people studying here for UK qualifications. And I think what's happened through the pandemic is that it's forced a period of innovation and change, telescoped it in the education sector. And I think there were some rather conservative attitudes towards education at the beginning of the pandemic. People never thought you'd be able to deliver high quality education virtually online. And yet many universities, centres of education have demonstrated that you can do exactly that. And I think the more flexibility and the more innovative approach that's brought to bear on that, the better. And I think one other area where Malaysia could become much more important and significant is in some service industries. So, for example, legal services. There are two British legal companies operating here. I think they're the only foreign legal companies operating in Malaysia. There's a certain amount of concern about opening up the legal services market. But you have such brilliant lawyers here in Malaysia and so much opportunity for expansion. I think the worry is there'll be more players coming into the same pond. But I think what Malaysia can do, exactly as you say, is to grow that sector bigger and bigger and benefit much more from being a regional or maybe even global center for legal services. We did that in the UK. There are now 200 legal services companies operating in London, and the cake has grown and everybody has benefited from that expansion and that openness and liberalization.
We do have an arbitration center here, and we're building up on that, and I think it's got massive traction. But you rightly said that the services sector is something that we can and should probably look at, as we think about what digital really means. Ambassador Hiroshi, if I come back to you, I don't want to keep you gentlemen for much longer. Where do you think are the sweet spots for our relationship over the next 5 years? We've done a lot. We've been into mutual meetings with our chairman, Dr. Reyes. You have a really good, blockchain operations going down in Johor, and many others. But where do you think really is the sweet spot? Is it smart manufacturing? Is it IoT? Maybe a look into that crystal ball, Ambassador, and guide us there.
Well, Malaysia has a huge advantage, like everybody has pointed out, the political stability, talent, the English is well spoken. I cannot specify which areas, but by bringing firstly, and for instance, the trade and the investment regime, why not to sign up for or ratify CPTPP? It's a kind of the public statement that we are going to put in place a high level of protections for the industry. This is a hugely encouraging statement. I very much like. Of course, this is a political scientific issue, but I very much like to welcome the ratification by Malaysia CPTPP. And also, the technology should not lead to the divide, but rather inclusiveness. So, for that happen, the infrastructure, digital infrastructure, is very much important. Again, here, the Japanese company is going to bring the submarine cable networks to Malaysia in 2020. So this is hugely kind of enable the fast and the large capacity of the networks would be possible. So we are here to support the Malaysia's leap to digital economy or society. So looking forward to work with Malaysia.
We're trying to take a leap from society 5.0 and
Yes.
move towards Malaysia 5.0.
Yes.
And we say, where society is integrated with 4 technologies. And I think what you said really is spot on in terms of also digital infrastructure. So, working very hard to look at some of the frameworks and regulations around, as you know, the cabotage policy and data center frameworks and the rest. I take your point there, Ambassador. And if I go to you, Ambassador Cristiano, also, perhaps, just to look at the ending to this is, where do you think we should be going with Italy? How do you see our relationship developing further, perhaps over the next couple of years? Looking at how fast the world is changing right now, I can't even say 5 years, right? Where do you think are some of the sweet spots?
Thank you. Where Italy-Malaysia relationship is going in the next few years. For Italy, Malaysia is a very important country, both as a market in itself and in the context of ASEAN, because Malaysia is also one of the most important countries in ASEAN, and Italy has just become last September, less than 1 year ago, a development partner of ASEAN, which shows the commitment that we have towards this region in general and this country in particular. The Italian companies are more and more present in Malaysia, and I have to say that at least so far they have not been deterred by the pandemic and by the economic difficulties that everywhere the pandemic has created, so much that just recently, for example, a very important Italian company, Assicurazioni Generali, which is one of the most important insurance companies at the European level and the most important in Italy, has announced a very important investment in the insurance sector in Malaysia, and which has been clearly a big, I would say, vote of confidence of Italian company towards Malaysia. We see Italian companies see Malaysia a little bit like a hub, a gateway, I would say, to ASEAN countries, to other Asian countries also. And this is because Malaysia is at the center of the network, of a network of agreements. First of all, of course, the agreements that Malaysia has in the framework of ASEAN with all the other neighbor countries, because Malaysia now has become also a part of the regional comprehensive economic partnership, which is something which is very interesting for Italian companies, because of course Italian companies which are in Malaysia can benefit from the new rules of this agreement once it has been ratified also by Malaysia. So they are looking with great interest to this. As of course they are looking at with great interest to the possibility that Malaysia ratifies also the CPTP at 11, as it is known now, because this puts Malaysia at the center of a network of trade agreements that can be very beneficial also for Italian companies present here. Then there are, of course, characteristics of the Malaysian market in itself. The fact that Malaysia is so high in all the classification of the easiness of doing a business, the fact that everybody speaks English, the level of infrastructure, which are typical of Malaysia. And I would like to conclude to mention one thing about free trade agreements, and that is the importance that the negotiations of a free trade agreement between Malaysia and the European Union will have in order to facilitate the presence of European and Italian companies in this country, especially to the benefit of Malaysian and European SMEs.
I think those are substantial points, Ambassador, and from where I'm sitting, I certainly hope there will be some resolution to that, echoing also what Ambassador Hiroshi said earlier on, that we can move ahead with this agreements. In the meantime, we have an agreement with Australia. We have the AMTX, the Asian Malaysia Tech Exchange. Mr. Paul, we established a couple of action items under those. And that has been signed and agreed upon, and we're moving ahead on it. And some of the benefits here is, MDEC offering the Malaysian Tech Entrepreneur Pass, to get the Australians here for 1 year or 5 year pass. We also have the one-stop center. Where do we go from here, Mr. Paul? How do we take this to a deeper level?
Thank you, Raymond. And can I just reiterate the importance that a number of my diplomatic colleagues have made in terms of commitment to those bilateral and regional agreements. It's extremely important that those agreements take place, but it's also very important, and I know that for the High Commission and the Australian government at the moment, looking where we can refresh, where we can upgrade. Some of the agreements that we have with Malaysia is very important. They should be seen to be, you know, living, working documents that both sides agree, particularly now with the rapid change that's happening throughout the world, and again, the changes in the digital economy, how we approach things. So we certainly have a commitment to work with Malaysia on upgrading and refreshing those agreements where we can. And certainly the agreement that we have with MDEC is again a very important document, and we should think of it as something that we look at, we review on a regular basis. Where do we go from here? Well, that's really one of the most difficult questions, I think, of this whole panel session, because the future is so uncertain in many ways. But if I could perhaps just stress the need to to adapt quickly, to look at where we can work and provide practical solutions to business, and also to put in place, I suppose, longer term initiatives that really provide a strong environment for companies, for businesses to flourish. I think one of the challenges for us as in promoting trade and investment is to make sure that we have the right tools and the right platforms available to us, which requires investment. So looking at areas where we can actually facilitate platforms that provide an opportunity for government and business to talk with each other is important. We have some of those tools, as we're using right now, but I think that there is greater scope for us to work between our agencies on establishing more efficient platforms that really reach out to business. So I might leave it there, if I may.
Thank you, Minister. I will agree with you on that, to say that would definitely be a way forward for that. I think the MTX is something that we can take further quicker, given this current situation. We've already started, like I said, well with it. I'm looking forward to engage more with the Australian companies. My colleagues Ryan and Gopi are probably doing that as we speak. Ambassador Head, to close it off, last question here for you. What do you think we can do, Malaysia can do, to become the heart of digital ASEAN? We talked about a couple of the things early on. Your colleagues have mentioned it. Become a party to the regional agreements. Strengthening our regulatory framework. But really, if I were to ask you for a secret sauce from your outside-in perspective, or maybe inside-out perspective, what would that sauce be, Ambassador?
Well, so you left me the most difficult question until the end. But before I come around to try to answer it, which is a difficult call, just a couple of words on the context. Cristiano mentioned CPTPP, and just to register, one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic about the future for UK-Malaysia trade and investment is the renewed focus on the Asia-Pacific region now that the UK has left the European Union. And we have applied to become a dialogue partner with ASEAN. We have applied to join CPTPP. And this is very exciting. I mean, it just shows the emphasis, and the emphasis is for very good reasons, that this is the region with a very, very large market, with a growing middle class. It's the most economically exciting region on the planet, that's for sure. And Malaysia lies at a strategic point within it, and I think is extremely well placed to become a regional hub for all the reasons that we talked about. We talked about talent. I think that's really important. If I can pick out one area which I'm very excited about for the future between, again, UK-Malaysia development, that's smart cities. There's a lot of interest here in smart cities. And in a way, smart cities bring together all of the tech issues that we've been talking about. And the UK government has very exciting tech partnerships already with Malacca and Iskandar. Last month, we released a Malaysia Smart Cities Handbook in conjunction with the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. And in that, what we try to do is to analyze the key technological drivers in smart cities development, We showcase what the UK can offer in terms of partnership, and we sketch out some plans that can be used and can be shared and taken forward by any cities. And we've had a lot of really positive responses to that. And I think it's an area which in a way brings together and encapsulates all the opportunities that tech brings.
Thank you so much. I do have a couple of questions coming through, but in the interest of time, perhaps we can have another session like this. The interest picks up. I really wanted to go into ESG, for example, and clean tech and edutech and what we can do around that space. Digital being the great equalizer that we spoke on. But again, in the interest of time, firstly, I must say thank you very much. Deepest appreciation from MDEC to Ambassador Hiroshi, Ambassador Cristiano Maggipinto, Minister Councillor Paul, and Your Excellency Charles here. Thank you so much for making some time here to share your thoughts. I take back the closing remarks would be Malaysia has strengths in talents, diversity, location. We have good, stable infrastructure. We're growing that with the Jendela and the move towards 5G. But some of the areas that we can also possibly look at further is the bilateral and regional agreements, our commitment to that cause, and also how we can perhaps think out of the box. And this I say, think out of the box in terms of upskilling our workforce, upskilling our mental attitude, based on all four, gentlemen, what you said earlier on. On that note, let's close off the first day of the second Malaysia Tech Month. Thank you so much for your honorable presence here, and I wish you a very good evening ahead. Stay safe, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Raymond, for the wonderful exchange with the panel of distinguished ambassadors and the wealth of ideas shared in building a successful digital economy. And with that, we have come to the end of day one of MTM 2021. Once again, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to all of our esteemed speakers for the engaging sessions today with their outlooks, ideas, and insights on pragmatizing the digital economy amid today's unprecedented uncertainties. And thank you to each and every one of you, our participants, for joining us today. I truly hope that you've enjoyed today's session and gained valuable insights. Now, do join us tomorrow for another full day of great insights as we commence at 9 a.m. for our first session tomorrow. Now, meanwhile, do check out our agenda for satellite events happening all around the MTM 2021 space. We welcome all participants to make use of the virtual networking lounges available as well. Now, please reach out to the event admin via the chat box for any form of assistance you may require. And with that, I'd like to take my leave. My name is Julie Woon, and I'd like to wish all of you a great evening ahead. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Malaysia Tech Month 2021 is a virtual month-long curation of electrifying digital and technology keynotes, workshops, discussion panels, and business matching sessions aimed at asserting Malaysia as the heart of digital ASEAN. Since its inception 25 years ago, MDEC has indisputably transformed the ICT and digital landscape of Malaysia. The Malaysia Tech Month is the nation's marquee investment promotion platform, bringing together industry, government, and investors to form effective collaborations, enabling better innovations. We are the pulse that generates the heartbeat of the digital economy of Malaysia. Join us today at the Malaysia Tech Month 2021.